White as snow, red as blood. Chapter 6. The nobility and staff applauded when Queen Astrid stepped out behind forest green curtains. She wore a spring green dress, and upon her head was her gold crown with emerald jewels. The ends of her blonde hair were curled, and her golden eyes beamed. She was always the fairest maiden in the kingdom and continued to be after her marriage to the king. Every woman strived to follow her example when it came to fashion. The queen thanked her people for their love, and the room stilled at her words. Thank you all, for your love. I know this gathering was sudden, but my youngest son has returned to us. I wish to share this moment with my closest friends. Once again united, my two beautiful boys, Crown Prince Richard and Prince Nathaniel of Hamilton. The crowd clapped once more as the princes emerged with Snow White and Rose Red. They had spent the last week learning to dance so that they could be introduced to the public. At the sight of the girls, chatter spread throughout the room. The sisters' beauty awestruck the crowd as the girls looked perfect next to the two princes. Their gowns were similar in style, but the colors made the difference. Rose wore a black dress accented with red roses, while Snow's dress was blue with white roses. Richard and Nathaniel wore forest green tunics and golden crowns, but Richard's crown was far more extravagant, with multiple jewels, while Nathaniel's contained only a center gem. However, hardly anyone was paying attention to the princes. "Look at those red lips and black hair," a nobleman said. The other man next to him agreed. "Yes, amazing indeed, but the other girl. Her skin is flawless. It is of the fairness of snow itself." "Their names are Rose Red and Snow White," Elijah said from behind the men. "They live on the mountain." "The mountain? Why have they hidden themselves all the way up there?" one of the men asked. The other laughed, "So they wouldn't attract unwanted attention from men like you." "How insulting! I would never!" Queen Astrid caught wind of numerous conversations, and it sickened her to hear the people praise the girls while giving little attention to her sons. She wondered if the girls' beauty alone would be her doom. Perhaps her people would forget about her entirely. She sighed. If that was the extent of her downfall, she did not mind. Richard would become king and possibly marry Rose Red. The girls would nearly replace her as the fairest maiden, which meant she could finally leave the pressure of maintaining face. However, jealousy and mistrust easily itched Queen Astrid's heart. Her doom could not mean her retirement. It meant her death or much worse. "May we all have a wonderful evening. My sons will begin the first dance with their chosen partners." Queen Astrid boomed, winning everyone's eyes for a brief moment. Snow gulped, having overheard some of the chatter. She looked like a lady, and now the crowd would expect her to dance and speak like one. Yes, they received lessons, but Snow wasn't prepared for the real thing. She knew Rose would be fine because Rose was quick on her feet, and when she watched her tongue, people found Rose's conversations engaging. Nathaniel leaned closer to Snow as they walked to the center of the room behind Richard and Rose. He could sense that she was troubled and wanted to repel her worry. "Snow, if anyone's going to mess up tonight, it will be me. I've spent most of my life as a bear, and I wasn't a dancing one." A smile spread across her face, sending Nathaniel to the moon and back. He always wanted to tell her jokes like this but feared Snow wouldn't find them amusing. It was still awkward between them, yet she remained by his side. Snow was reaching outside of herself just so she wouldn't lose him. Nathaniel took off the necklace she had given him. She stared at it, thinking he no longer wore it once he changed into more princely apparel. He put the necklace over her head and let it hang around her neck. Then he dared to lift her long hair so the necklace fell against her skin. He thanked the Creator that nothing snagged. "Are you ready?" he asked, extending his hand once it glided out of her silky hair. Richard and my instructor gave me some last-minute pointers, so I promise I won't step on your toes. Snow chuckled, boosting Nathaniel's confidence further. I'm ready, she whispered. Except she wasn't. As soon as Nathaniel pulled Snow White closer to him, she stiffened. Rose and Richard had also gotten into position, and Rose glanced at her sister, wondering if she would be okay. After all, Snow hadn't spent much time around men, and this was her first dance. When Snow finally met her eyes, Rose winked. Thankfully, Snow's feet automatically followed Nathaniel's lead when the music started. Eyes watched the two couples from around the room, including those who joined the dance. To distract Snow from the onlookers, Nathaniel said, "It's been a long week. You and your sister have been close by, but we've hardly spoken. I've always wanted to tell you and Rose how much you meant to me. That whatever happened, I would never forget you. I always wanted to return, but I knew I shouldn't until I found out how to break the enchantment. And even when I did that and found out that the centaur was hiding in the mountains, I still wanted to come back. Why didn't you, especially when it was freezing?" He pressed his lips together, looking away from Snow and focusing on the people around them. "Remember the last time it was just you and me before your mother died? Do you remember what you said then? You closed the book you were reading, rested your head on my neck, and brushed the top of my head. After a moment of silence, you told me a man attacked you the last time you went into town. Your mother and Rose were off selling herbs while you fed the horse." Snow peered at their feet and felt the sting of the cut on her upper arm like it happened moments ago. "I was foolish. I let him get close to me because he asked if I had any water. I still remember the words he said to me once when he drew a black knife with a singular green jewel. 'Skin like snow, but surely your lips bleed red.' I never wanted to go into town again." The man fled only because Rose noticed and screamed at the top of her lungs. Meanwhile, I was petrified. Nathaniel hadn't meant for her to fully submerge herself in the past. He mentally kicked himself for choosing a grim topic, though he brought it up for a reason. Not to dwell on the attack but on the moment she confided in him. "When you told me that story, my drive to become human increased tenfold. I vowed that I would protect you from danger once I was human and even do it as a bear. I hated the thought that someone had hurt you after you showed them kindness. The real reason I left wasn't because of your mother's death or my determination to hunt the centaur. It was because He forced himself to look at her. "Snow, I fell in love with you. And I knew immediately that I would never receive that kind of love as a bear." They stopped dancing. Snow White gazed at him with her lovely blue eyes. "I understand," she whispered, "but I don't know how to return a man's love either." Nathaniel's eyes crinkled, and he slowly swayed them back into the dance. Unlike before, their eyes didn't wander to the ground or the crowd. They stayed focused on their partner's face. "I'm sure you'll figure it out. But if you choose to stay with me, friend or otherwise, I'll ensure your safety." Off to the side of them, Rose rolled her eyes and drew her attention to Richard. "And he was trying to tease me when he's in love with my sister. What a pain. Was he always like this?" Richard laughed, glancing at Nathaniel and Snow, who were now in their own little world. "As far as I can remember, yes." Nathaniel was never great at keeping his nose out of other people's business. Plus, he was constantly trying to prove himself to our parents, which is why he went after the wizard in the first place. In his little brain, he thought it would make him Mother's favorite. Why is it that they wanted the wizard? Don't get me wrong, he wasn't a nice fella, but I felt most of his threats were empty. Rose asked as they swung past Queen Astrid. Richard did not know the real reason, telling Rose the wizard stole from the treasury. The conversation set Queen Astrid on edge when it reached her ears. She tried to calm herself so she wouldn't crush the glass goblet in her hands, but she felt her nerves rising. Finally, she set the goblet down and dismissed herself from the ball. While she went out, Snow White and Red Rose's names rang in her ears. Queen Astrid pulled out her mirror as soon as she got to her chambers. She gripped the handle tightly and demanded answers. "Mirror, mirror, whose heart did the wretched wizard give me?" The mirror showed her the wizard in his younger days crouching over a pig. He wore a hood and held a sleek black knife. Queen Astrid didn't need to see anymore to know she had been tricked. Based on Rose's conversation with Richard, she doubted the girls would merely marry her sons and ask no further questions. No, the truth would come out and ruin Astrid completely. The queen was tempted to throw the mirror across the room, but she composed herself and set the mirror down gracefully. "If you want someone dead, do it yourself. And if that person is close to you, do it discreetly or make it an accident."